Look into my eyes. Your soul is stained by the blood of the innocent. Feel their pain.
This issue starts with a biker named Steelwind zipping through the Quentin Carnival on her bike with crazy maneuvers and even jumping over a tent, landing next to Mr. Quentin's trailer. Blaze, Red, and his friend Vincenzo, I honestly don't know how to pronounce his name, Vincenzo, witnessing all of it and deciding to check it out. On their way, they chat with Corky, one of the carnies that was injured in their recent encounter with the Circus of Crime. He seems to be doing better, but his son, Elliot, is unfortunately a shell of his former self. Ghost Rider had burned his soul, an innocent man, and Blaze is dealing with enough guilt for him and the demon as the demon could care less. I do really like this moment though, as the great Vincenzo does a little magic trick for Elliot just to bring a little beauty into his life, and it makes me happy. Elliot even smiles, admiring the flower Vincenzo seemed to conjure out of nowhere. Blaze, Red, and Vincenzo make their way to Mr. Quentin Steelwind. He addresses Blaze directly, stating he figured after seeing Steelwind he would show up here. He says that they are right in assuming they don't need a third stunt cyclist. Red has nothing to worry about, but Blaze, your ass is fired. Blaze is in utter shock. At first is furious, but quickly it turns to submissiveness as he walks away utterly defeated. Red, being the excellent friend he is like, fuck that shit. Quentin, you snake. You aren't tossing out my pal. Before he can grab Quentin, though, Steelwind intercepts his wrist, and it feels as though she might crush it. Luckily, she releases his hand before any damage is done. Quentin is like, I trust this debate is over. Red is just like, for now. Somewhere else, we come across a mysterious woman getting on a bus. She is described as a tortured soul with a burden and a hope. Her burden, unspeakable. Her hope, though, that would be our man Johnny Blaze. Later that night, Red is trying to convince Johnny not to give up. He didn't track Johnny down in the last issue just for him to leave again. Johnny states that's the point. He shouldn't have come back. Cynthia Randolph, not sounding too concerned, asks Johnny if he is going, could he give her a ride, as she feels she is done writing her article about the carny life. And just then, Vincenzo interjects saying Johnny will not be leaving, and before Blaze can argue, he has Johnny come outside. To Johnny's surprise, the entire carnival has come together, stating he is family and they don't take kindly to being broken up. They are willing to come together to confront Quentin about his decision. Blaze is in shock. He doesn't know what to say. He doesn't feel as if he's worth the trouble. Vincenzo assures him he is more than worth it.
You're worth it. Because you're worth it.
Because you're worth it.
I'm worth it.
The mob of carnies end up confronting Quentin, saying they want Blaze back, and Steelwind should be gone by morning, or there will be trouble. Quentin argues about them making demands. It's his carnival, built on his sweat. They respond, their sweat too. Red states they are the ones who built up the carnival after the Circus of Crime wrecked it, and no one has worked harder than Johnny. How can he turn him away like this? Surprisingly, Quentin agrees. He says tomorrow they will arrange a contest, a race between Blaze and Steelwind. Winner gets to stay. The crowd departs, and Steelwind tells Quentin,
the master will not be pleased by your show of weakness.
Quentin says what's weak is his helping her and her boss and turning his back on his own people. She finishes her conversation by saying,
how very noble. But you were not so noble years ago, were you? Not quite so compassionate.
Elsewhere, Johnny ponders his future. As of now, it's up in the air whether or not he'll be back with the carnival. He is still surprised by all who showed up in his support of him and how they cared for him. He is in disbelief. He feels he can't let them down. The Ghost Rider, however, tells him he will let them down. He always lets them down. He's weak, and the only way he will win this race is if he sets the rider free. Johnny refuses. He can do it on his own. Morning comes. The race is about to begin. Quentin tells him it isn't about style or anything fancy, just whoever crosses the finish line first. Ready, set, go! Steelwind leaps ahead immediately, but Johnny catches up once they are through the spinning tubes. They both make their way up the twin wires. How? I have no idea. Comic book magic. Steelwind seems to be planning something as she fiddles with her controls on her bike. A laser shoots from her bike to blazes. It's small and not easily seen. It damages Johnny's gas tank. Gas begins to spew, his bike starts wobbling. But Blaze, resourceful as ever, is able to use one of his gloves to block the leak. Steelwind is both frustrated and impressed. They both are making their way through the final obstacles when the Ghost Rider demands to be set free. This distracts Blaze at the last minute and unfortunately costs him the race. Steelwind wins. Quentin rather rudely rubs it in Johnny's face that he had his chance and lost it. Vincenzo basically tells Quentin not to be a dick. Johnny says to let it go, and perhaps this is for the best. Vincenzo disagrees and thinks something dark is behind all of this. And in time, he will unravel the mystery, and Johnny will be back. Red is still pleading with Quentin. He just responds that he does what he must, including getting rid of Mrs. Randolph. Randolph is like, I was leaving anyway, no need to be a jerk about it. In moments, after some goodbyes, they are off. Several nights later, Vincenzo is seen walking through the carnival and reflecting over his recent discussions with Quentin, with suspicions over him being caught in something he can't control. He threatened to leave, which Quentin didn't even bat an eye to, which is surprising and disappointing considering how long he has been with Quentin in the carnival. He finds Elliot, still holding the flower he gave him. He goes over to Elliot. So Elliot, you have seen how easily the beauty in life can be transformed into ugliness and death. But if there's one truth the great Vincenzo has learned in his day, is that this beauty, like truth, survives. Through a magic trick, he presents Elliot with a new rose. Elliot smiles and begins to repeat Vin's line, beauty, sir. Before he can finish saying, Steelwind snatches the rose from Elliot, just for a second. She observes the rose with the most gentle of looks before she goes and crushes the rose. She then mocks the magician's view on beauty, saying,
Beauty is transient, magician, and only the most awful truths survive. You would do well to learn that.
Vin noticed the gentle look she had for a brief moment. He feels maybe there is more to her. He decides to go see if she is as much of a woman as she is a monster? Under her gloves, we see skin and muscle tangled in machinery. Vin is bewildered and in shock. He doesn't move. Steelwind simply advances towards him. Now we get a flashback and a look into who Steelwind once was. She seemed to have a gentle life in Japan as an artist, but all of that was cut short in a boating accident. She was found washed ashore on a small Caribbean island, half dead, bones shattered, arms mangled beyond repair. She was taken by a mysterious benefactor who reconstructed her with advanced surgeries, reinforced her bones, and rebuilt her arms. From then on, she was Steelwind, dedicated to serving her master who gave her new life. Even though the dude is probably a douche nozzle, eventually, working for this man had tainted her soul. We see her pouncing Vincenzo. We get a cutaway to Red and Corky with the stereotypical, did you hear that? It was probably nothing. When in every situation, it is always something. Elsewhere, we cut to Cynthia, whose curiosity knows no bounds, as she seems to be digging into the past, and this brings her great dread. Elsewhere, we find Johnny in a seedy motel, not being able to sleep. He is haunted by thoughts of needing to go back. We cut to somewhere in Kentucky. The carnival seems to be doing well, but little joy is had as Steelwind has been harassing and bullying the carnies, demanding more profits, ordering them to do anything they can. She even bullies those who are ill or crippled, like Corky and Elliot.
Work or leave?
She's kinda being a bitch, and I don't use that word lightly. This goes on for many nights, as she is getting under everyone's skin and making everyone uncomfortable. What used to be a fun and joyous place to work for all has turned into a stressful nightmare.
You can quit if you want, like Vincenzo did.
What the hell? The carny life is all those people have, all they have ever known, so they come up with a plan. We see Cynthia come up to the front entrance of the carnival, and she is blocked from coming in. She says she even phoned Mr. Quentin. Apparently, they have specific orders to keep her out. Surprisingly, Johnny interjects from behind, Cynthia stating, "I'll bet those orders didn't even come from Quentin himself, and I personally have to agree with Johnny on this." Cynthia is surprised to see Johnny and asks what he's doing there. He asks her the same. She states she has been checking into the Steelwind, and apparently Steelwind is like a parasite going from carnival to carnival and bankrupting them. That's all Johnny needs to hear to validate his gut instinct that something evil was afoot. Johnny takes Cynthia with him. He knows a back way into the carnival. She tells him she is really glad to see him, and she really means it. 9 p.m. rolls around, and the carnies all exchange signals and glances. They all seem to have coordinated a plan involving closing the carnival down early. Mr. Quentin is shocked and curious to see everyone leaving early and upset. He swings open the door to his trailer to reveal all of the carnies angry outside right in front of his trailer. They all shout at him, demanding answers and throwing around accusations. Basically, they're all pissed. The only response they get from Mr. Ralph Quentin is the look of utter shame and defeat. He has seen his life's work leveled in the past weeks, and he had thought he would do anything to restore it. Tonight, he has learned otherwise. Suddenly, Steelwind comes around speeding and telling Quentin that he had struck a deal with her master for financial assistance in exchange for his obedience. It's time for her to take command.
And before you fools voice your feeble protestations, remember that others have dared cross me in past days, and they have paid a price so great it can't be spoken.
She says this as she holds what is clearly Vincenzo's wand in her hand and breaks it. They all realize the implication and decide to back off. For if someone is fiery-tempered and strong-willed as Vin stood up to her and failed, what chance do they have? There is one who doesn't back off, though. He states that these people recently stood up for him. Now it's time for him to do the same. The man, of course, is John Blaze, aka a badass. She is done with his shit, and he has gotten in her way and her master's way for the last time. All bets are off as she fires at him with those secret lasers on her bike. Blaze is able to dodge and starts riding with Steelwind following. Blaze apparently watched that episode of Yu Yu Hakusho, the one where Yusuke was able to bounce his spirit gun off a mirror and take out Hiei.
Too bad all of your energy was wasted on poor aim. What happened?
Simple. I won.
But you missed. The forlorn hope.
And thought, what the heck, let's see if it works. For lasers too. Apparently, it totally does. Steelwind is like,
Well played.
She uses her anger to concentrate it all on Blaze through her bike and shoots a geyser of flames at him. Surrounded by flames, for the first time ever, the Ghost Rider forces the transformation onto Blaze. It's a good thing too, as Blaze would have surely died and the Rider would have been stuck in limbo. Steelwind is like,
The devil that lives inside Blaze?
and the Ghost Rider spawns.
You've heard of me, have you? Good.
He goes on to create a motorcycle of hellfire while the motorcycle he was on crashes straight into her. But her cycle seems to be made of tougher stuff. She then shoots missiles at him. He drives around trying to avoid them. They are heat seekers. He responds to finding this out by shooting a tree with hellfire. The missiles attract to it and explode. After that doesn't work, she basically goes, "Fuck this," and begins to flee. Ghost Rider just laughs, mocking her while flinging hellfire her way, spouting,
You are all the same in the end. No matter your weapons, no matter your boasts, you are all cowards, all ripe for the Ghost Rider's wrath.
Steelwind jumps a wide chasm. The laughing demon follows with ease. She then unleashes a whirlwind from the back of her bike into him. He is flung through the air and drops to the ground like a ragdoll. She then speaks in a calm whisper.
Once, I lived only for beauty. I was a fool. The Master has shown me that in a world which permits such as we to exist, beauty is a lie, and only death has meaning.
She then shoots 2 more missiles attached to wires from her motorcycle straight at the Ghost Rider. Direct hit. She thinks he is finished, and boasts as much. The Rider denies this. He grabs the wires and flings her bike straight through the air and smashes it against a tree as Steel Wind falls to the side. She observed the ruined bike that has been a symbol of her life. Then she looks down at the mangled technological horror she calls arms. And as she senses the Rider creeping up behind her, she offers no resistance. He begins doing what he does best and engulfs her in hellfire. It begins to burn her mind and strip back layers of her soul. And for an instant, she is the gentle artist once more. And then the moment is gone, and she begins to scream and scream. An exhausted Johnny Blaze staggers back to the carnival. They all barrage him with questions from last night about the fight and the fate of Steel Wind. He simply replies, "You wouldn't want to know." I can agree with that. In an epilogue, we see 1 week later, 2 men are discussing what has transpired with the carnival and Steel Wind. This man, this freak master, seems to be the one responsible for the recent events. The master behind Steel Wind. He's disappointed at her failure. His subordinate, Ronaldo, assures him that it isn't her fault, as he has felt the touch of the demon personally. Freakmaster responds that in order to deal with the demon, we should deal more directly with the man. While looking at the newspaper, we can see it's an article of Johnny Blaze. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate it. First off, I want to thank my friend Rose for providing her voice for Steel Wind. When I initially recorded, I just wasn't really satisfied with the way it was going, so I thought I'd try something new. Hope you guys enjoyed. When I first read this issue, I enjoyed it, but I definitely feel like I got a lot more out of it this time around than I did before, especially knowing where things go with this character. There are a lot of ups and downs with her character throughout the different volumes of Ghost Rider. I think it's strongest from this appearance and her when she appears in the 90s series. Her character just has a lot of growth throughout the 90s series, and she really develops into a very, very interesting character that I was hoping to see grow and develop even more. But one problem you'll learn reading Ghost Rider is there are a lot of plot points that don't stick, that don't evolve. Throughout the 80s and 90s series, you can see them as very much a companion piece. There are a lot of storylines that have follow-throughs and grow, evolve, and develop. But after the 90s series, pretty much every volume is a new story, is its own story, and they barely touch upon the past. Except in Jason Aaron's run. Just read the 80s series, 90s series, and Jason Aaron's run and be pretty happy. But most of the other volumes, whenever they try to pick up a story, like specifically Steel Wind's, the next time you see her after the 90s series is, and I think it's Rob Williams' run, when he does Alejandra's volume with her 9 issues, and it's extremely disappointing. Steel Wind is a character that really has so much potential and deserves much more than what has been given to her after the 90s series. She has so much room to grow, evolve, and become a much more prominent character, and I think she really deserves it. I kind of hope maybe the word gets out there or something, and some writer decides to take her on and make her a much more prominent character in comics. She's got so much potential. And also, what the hell? Why isn't more people cosplaying her? Like, she really could be a kick-ass cosplay. Anyways, all I'm saying is we need more love for Steel Wind. She's a great character, and I'd love to see more of her in the future. Besides that, this issue was a lot of fun. Her getting to know Steel Wind's backstory and getting to see her introduction was really exciting, and I really loved her battle with Johnny Blaze and the Ghost Rider. It's always exciting to see people's reactions to Ghost Rider and how he really is a crazy bastard. I also want to apologize. His name is Vincenzo, not Vincenzo. Vincenzo. I really hate that I kept saying it wrong. I wanted to edit it. I didn't want to have to re-record everything, and I also didn't want to just insert me saying it right because it would just be awkward. Always like popping in just the right pronunciation and it not going with the sentences right. You know what I mean. But yeah, Vincenzo. Cool name. Great character. Maybe we'll see more of him. Or will we? I really hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys have been enjoying these videos. If you can, I'd really appreciate you guys liking and subscribing. On the next issue, we're going to be going back to Dan Ketch from where it left off. If you guys remember, it was a pretty depressing ending. And we're going to see how Dan Ketch struggles with that and how he learns to move on. It's not easy, but I think he can do it. See you guys in the next video.